The National Wage Commission calling on leaders of Congress to immediately convene the bicameral conference committee to finalize the respective versions of the proposed legislated wage increase before they adjourn next week. Joining us now, Carlos Miguel Oñate of the Trade Union Congress of the Philippines. Hi, Carlos. Good afternoon. Welcome to Market Edge.
Hi, good afternoon, Mimi. Thank you for having me back on the program.
All right, Carlos. So this is a done deal. What else is in the way?
The TUCP party list, which co-authored this legislated wage increase, the first since 1989, we celebrate with tens of millions of Filipino workers and their families. But now, as we thank the Speaker, Martin Romualdez, for ensuring the passage in the House of Representatives, now we call on our Senate counterparts to immediately convene the BICAM as soon as possible on Monday so that we come up with a final bill, whether it is Senate's 100 or it's the House 200 or we meet middle ground 150 pesos. The important part is that time is running out, but we still have 3 session days left next week. So we have to get this done, and we need to get this done now.
Carlos, just very quickly, what are you hearing from Senate, for example, or from Congress? Where do you think the final number will settle? Is it the middle ground, 150?
The Senate passed the 100 pesos wage increase last year without a single objection. The House of Representatives passed it, 200 pesos also without a single objection. Now we are seeing the latest May 2025 SWS surveys, which shows you that over 90% of our people want the Senate and the House to increase workers' wages and improve the purchasing power. For us workers, of course, it is the higher, the better that we will push for the 200 pesos because that is the necessary amount to lift over 5 million minimum wage earners out of poverty.
Mm-hmm. So you've got 3 days left before Congress adjourns next week. What happens if Congress does not deliver by then?
That is not actually in our option. That is not in our vocabulary as of now. We seek that we will have a BICAM convened by Monday. Then we do the meeting, a BICAM meeting by Tuesday, and we can get it passed either Tuesday afternoon or the last session day on Wednesday. It has been 36 years in the making. In 1989, it was also TUCP that pushed for that last legislated wage increase. And here we are back again. Let us not waste this moment, this history, and let us make history together.
Could you take us back to history? The last time was 1989. How much was the congressional wage hike?
The last wage increase by Congress was in 1989 when they gave a 25 peso increase. The minimum wage then was only 64 pesos. It became 89 pesos, the national minimum wage in 1989. It was a 40% increase. There was no economic catastrophe as predicted by economists and business people before. And so we trust that now we can pass this 200 peso legislated wage increase as a win-win for workers as well as employers in our economy.
Mm-hmm. Carlos, just playing devil's advocate here, we have been hearing from the business group and they're saying, you know, this minimum wage hike across the board, if it happens 200 pesos, this will only benefit what you said, 5 million minimum wage earners. But everybody will have to pay for this wage hike because you've got the informal sector, for example, businesses will be forced to raise their prices just so they can afford the wage hike. And when prices go up, everybody suffers, including the 5 million, especially those not included in the 5 million minimum wage earners. What are your thoughts on that?
After 2 years of exhaustive deliberations and committee hearings in both chambers of Congress, what has been proven is that, of course, the 5 million minimum wage earners greatly need this 200 peso wage increase. But it will not only benefit 5 million because the larger informal economy where most of our minimum wage earners are buying, for instance, if they have additional 200 in their pocket, they will buy in the nearby eateries, they will ride their jeepneys and their tricycles, thereby benefiting the larger informal economy. And we see this every 13th month pay, every Christmas bonus, there is massive spending for the larger informal economy. Also, if you have additional purchasing power for workers, then that pump primes our economy. That's 70 consumption-driven economy that we have, which will benefit from this wage increase. And besides the point, Ibon Foundation already released a study that the cost of this 200 peso wage hike is only 9 to 15% of the annual profits of micro until the large businesses. And this is on top of the existing exemptions they can apply. And of course, let us not forget the billions of tax cuts and incentives that Congress gave to the biggest corporation as well as MSMEs by virtue of create and create more.
One more thing, Carlos, are you not worried that this wage hike across the board could accelerate the automation push by companies? I mean, if they think that maybe it's going to be cheaper if I just bring in a machine to replace maybe 10 workers, does that not pose a concern for you, for your group?
Besides the cost implications that I have showed you, that it is only 9 to 15% and businesses can actually absorb it, the adoption of machinery will also depend per sector, and it has not been really very fast in terms of our current businesses. They still have a hard time trying to adapt, and we are saying that it is more cost efficient to invest in our human resource right now by paying higher wages so that they do not need to train every year, because higher wages means more productive workers and better employment retention, hence more cost savings for our employers, besides more consumption demand, more customers for our business enterprises.
It certainly makes sense when you explain the reason behind the 200 peso wage hike. But again, playing devil's advocate, when you talk to the businesses, their question is, so if we raise your minimum wage, will it mean improved efficiency or productivity as well? I mean, what...
That has been...
Go ahead.
Okay. That has been proven time and again. When you increase workers' wages, you increase productivity of our Filipino workers. Besides the point that for 36 long years, it has been Filipino workers, their productivity, that has generated our GDP growth and for all these years. And yet, for 36 years, we have to contend with barya-barya, konde, karampot, na portion of the profits of our businesses. After 36 years, we believe that the honest, hardworking Filipino workers demand and deserve a 200 peso wage increase. In 1989, the 89 pesos national minimum wage then, if you just adjust it for inflation, it would be 626 pesos by now. Unfortunately, here in the Philippines, we have 645 in National Capital Region. But let's look at our other regions. You have in the Cebu, you only have 501 pesos. In Bangsamoro, you only have 361 pesos. And it is particularly because of this broken regional wage board system, wherein you have regions with lower minimum wage, supposedly to attract investments, but those regions continue to be poorer and poorer as the day goes by, and people from the regions have to congregate here in Metro Manila, congesting Metro Manila, just to seek viable employment opportunities.
So moving forward, big picture, beyond the 200 peso wage hike that you guys are pushing, what are some of the big picture reforms that you think we need to fix the broken system as you described it?
Yes, the 200 peso wage increase is the first step towards a living wage that has been enshrined in the Constitution and has been agreed on internationally. The next step really is, how do we replace this broken regional wage board system? Because it makes no sense why a bank teller or a construction worker doing the same 8-hour work in Metro Manila will have a higher wage than that of working in Visayas or Mindanao. So there are reforms currently filed in the 19th Congress, and which we are looking to file in the 20th Congress, which is, for instance, there is one option of nationalizing it, which was the experience way back in history when we have a National Wage Commission. The second one is that we can convert it into industrial wage boards, wherein per industry can set their minimum wage, because we know for a fact that some industries record much higher growth than others and therefore can pay higher wages. So these all reforms we are keeping in mind, but the challenge and the target really is, how do we inch closer to the living wage, which is now estimated at 1,200 pesos.
All right. I imagine, Carlos, the assumption there, the reason why the minimum wages vary across the region is they're indexing it to the sort of inflation or the level of price of goods and services are in certain regions. They're expensive in Metro Manila, might be a little cheaper in other areas. So maybe that's where they're indexing it. One final question for the business sector who are asking, why are they putting the burden on the private sector? Why not government take charge of improving the living standards of Filipinos? What do you say to them?
Oh, first of all, with regards to indexing, if we follow that, some regions are actually recording higher inflation than the national capital region. For instance, Central Visayas region
Coming from a lower base. Coming from a lower base.
Lower. Yes, of course, they come from a lower base. Secondly, as to the context of why government should also share in the burden, the government has all the incentives, has all the reforms provided. They even have the wage subsidy program back then in the pandemic. The reality is that in a new Philippines, which we envision under this administration, everyone must share in the burden. And it is only right and just that our social partners and the employers also share in the burden so that no one who works here for a living should live in hunger and hardship.
Mm-hmm. And won't this make us less competitive against your neighbors?
That has been the failed theory of having minimum wages that are lower. For 36 years, we tried that, but investors really did not come in for the simple reason that it is actually higher electricity prices, not so much ease of doing business, and poor infrastructure, which are fundamental reforms which needs to be addressed. And actually, the reason why they come in here is because we have a quality competitive workforce. And the best way to invest in our human resource is by paying them a living wage.
All right. And on that note, Carlos, thank you so much for the time and good luck. We are watching this story closely. We hope it's great news for you guys next week. All right? Please do come back on the show.
Thank you very much, and I hope to deliver great news next week.
All right. All right. We'll see you soon.